I'm David Mason, the Director of Public Health for the town of Sandwich, and usually you see me with Chief Burke doing our PSAs on Wednesday. As cases increase in the town of Sandwich, I felt the need to have the community or connect the community more with what's occurring, and I had approached two individuals that had been positive and have had an experience that has brought them through some serious medical issues, and that they're still carrying some of those issues. And the first individual that I'll have is a young lady who's 25, and she will remain anonymous because of the type of work that she does, but she was more than willing to sit with me to talk about what occurred, how she contracted it, her feelings through the whole thing, and what she is experiencing now. And we'll have a gentleman in his late 50s, early 60s to speak to his experience. And I just think there's a need, because these two individuals are in our town and they're willing to sit with us and share their experience so that we can make it real. And I want you to understand what's occurring in town, what the public health nurse, Joanne Gake, and I see when we talk to these people and we have to knock on their door with these cases. And we're putting a face on what's going on right now. And I hope you can appreciate the presentation of this. I'm David Mason, the Director of Public Health for the town of Sandwich. And today we're doing a second interview with a resident of our community that had been positive with COVID and had experienced it early on. But again, what I wanted to do in the intentions is we brought someone to you who was in the age group of 20 to 29, and now we have someone with us in the age group 50 plus. So in the beginning, it was the 50 plus age group that was having a challenge and coming up positive, and now we're seeing the younger age group occurring. So to keep that in mind, but we have Mr. Kevin Lassett with us today, and Kevin is the Director of Theatrics at the high school. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And let's start from the beginning. So let's walk us back. It was back in, you were early enough that we're aware. We were talking about that it occurred right around the shutdown, March 13th.
Correct.
It was a Friday. The governor shut everything down. So take it from there. Tell us what occurred.
Sure. I was only 2 weeks away to opening our spring musical, A Chorus Line. And it still it saddens my heart that we had to close that production. The kids were just phenomenal.
Yep.
But yes, we shut down on the 13th. We stayed and did our rehearsals because my wife and I felt it was our duty to give hope for the kids and a distraction. So we stayed till about 5 or 6 that night and wrapped up, and that was it. And then went about our business. And you can imagine, that week prior to that Friday, I was out shopping for supplies and whatnot, and so I was exhausted by the time the weekend came. And then Monday came along, the 16th, and I woke up, I was fine, and went for a walk in the afternoon, early afternoon, with my wife and my dog. And I turned to Melinda and I said, honey, I'm not feeling so well. I feel really tired. And she said, well, you're probably just exhausted from all the activity and the state of the world.
And the emotions of it.
Exactly. So
Yep.
Just don't worry about it. Take a nap when you get home, which I did. I woke up at 4:30. I had a fever of 101.3, and it just went downhill from there.
Okay. So as that progressed, what direction did it go? I mean, as far as, we talk with people all the time, Joanne Gake and I and the public health nurse, about certain days 5, 6, and 7 being, there's usually some change and it can get serious. What did you experience?
Yeah, it started off like a typical flu, the body aches, high fever, and it seemed to spike, and then it was a little lower at times, but it never went away. But by the third day, I was quite lethargic, And whenever I tried to get up and walk to the restroom or take a shower or just get mobile, I felt as if I had walked 20 miles
Wow.
and uphill or climbed a mountain.
Yep.
And it was just relentless weight on my chest, and it took every ounce of my being to take a step to that shower, and then I would just lean against the wall and just let the hot water just kind of soothe me for a little bit. And it's amazing I didn't pass out
Yes.
in there, which I understand some people have. Yeah, so that's then it just progressed. I wrote down some dates here. So then I got tested on March 21st.
Where was that you got tested at
I
that
got
time?
tested at the by the Cape Cod Community College.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
the
the
drive-
drive-through that they had set up
Yes.
in the beginning. Okay.
Exactly. And I drove myself down. And you know, the thing about that is, and I'm sure doctors across the nation were instructed to say this, but I was on the phone with my doctor, and he advised me to stay home, which I was. And because he said it sounds like I was doing everything right. And I said, well, you think I should get tested? And he said, no. So, you know, the fever hit on the 16th. Well, the 20th, I still had a fever consistently. And so I called the office again, but it was after hours, and I got the service center, and then the doctor there advised that I go get tested. And so I made an appointment on that Saturday, which was the 21st, thankfully, because when I got my results 5 days later on the 26th, the nurse had said I was positive. And have I isolated myself, and am I using a different restroom? And I said, yes, I am. The moment I got the fever, I took it seriously. I took this whole thing seriously.
Yep.
The number one reason is because my wife has horrible asthma. And so I was in this grip of fear that I had to protect my wife at all cost. And then I bring it into the house. It was devastating. It was, yeah, it was hard.
So, I mean, at that time, too, I mean, it was very difficult to get tests. I mean, it was a
Yes.
struggle that we had in reaching out and with, you know, the testing community as far as making it available. And it wasn't readily available at that time, as it is more so now. So after you got tested, what direction did it go at that point? I mean,
Well,
how did it progress?
by then I wasn't talking very much at all, and I thought about it on the drive here for the interview. I should have brought my wife, because her perspective is quite different than mine. But
I
to
imagine.
see me go through it, and to hear her tell the story of just witnessing me kind of shut down as the days went on, and collapse and just kind of not be myself. But by then I was pretty miserable. I wasn't talking. It took me forever just to walk anywhere, and the cough by then was excruciating, because even if I attempted to talk, I couldn't control the cough, and I was fighting for breath. And if I did talk, I had to talk very quietly to try to get some sentences out. So luckily, we have a lot of friends that are nurses, and one of them is Kim Peterson. And I call her my Earth Angel, because she had been checking in with my wife just about every day. And because her daughter is part of our program, we're very good friends and whatnot. So she was checking in on me on a regular basis, along with some other nurse friends as well. But Kim was really just taking good care of us. And on the 27th, she had FaceTimed me, and she said, Kevin, you got to go in. You've been fighting the fever way too long. We'll let my staff know you're on your way, and please get in the car and go. Do you need an ambulance? Do you think? And so I said, no, my wife can take me. And we went, and I was admitted to Cape Cod Hospital on the 27th.
At that time, so when your wife brought you in, was she permitted to go in at that time?
No, she wasn't.
Okay.
Which was a very emotional step in the journey, because I was just a wreck on so many levels. And just driving there, I had to have the window rolled down because right now I can wear a mask and I'm not sick, and I can breathe okay. But when I was in the grip of that COVID-19 and I had the mask on, I felt like someone was like
Suffocating you.
Suffocating. So
Yeah.
I had to roll down my window and just gasp for breath, and it was just I can't only imagine. I can't believe my wife got me to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we get there, and this is where it gets hard. Sorry, but yeah, it was hard because I had to say goodbye to her, and she couldn't come in.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew at that stage I had two ways out of the hospital. Either I'm going to beat this or it's going to beat me.
Right.
And I had no idea what direction it was going to go. So I pull up, they see me, they come out with the wheelchair because I was very fragile and weak, and they put me in the chair, get me in, take me up to be evaluated. And it was some out of the movies because they're putting up all this paperwork, warning signs to the rest of the staff of how to enter the protocol to handle someone with the COVID-19. And blood was withdrawn, and I've never seen as many vials in my life, and different shapes and sizes, and some with liquid in it already, and they would mix my blood with it and shake it and zip it up in a plastic bag, and there was like 20 of them, and they shipped it off to be evaluated. And at one point, a doctor came in, female doctor, and I don't remember names, but she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Look, I want to ask you a very serious question. Are you okay with being intubated if we have to go that route?" And I said, "Well, you have to do what you have to do." And she said, "Okay.
Wow.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page."
Yeah. So that's a tough question without any support around you as far as family, your wife, or
Yeah.
and to get that and have to make that decision then.
Yeah, I was by myself, and she said, "Well, I just want to let you know, because if we go that route, you'll be out for about 10 days. You'll be unconscious." And I said, "Well, let's hope we don't go there, but you have my permission." Then a couple hours later go by, and another doctor comes in and says, "Yeah, it's definite. Your blood works off. We're going to admit you. You're going to go to the second floor." And by then, within a short amount of time after they brought me up to the COVID ward, I was informed that I had double pneumonia. My organs were shutting down. My kidneys and liver were shot. And I was dehydrated. And they put me on oxygen, and it gave me some relief. But again, it was a struggle to talk because of the weight that was on my chest.
From the double pneumonia also.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. So that was the start of that journey.
That was when it really got real, because up until I got the test, I was in denial, thinking, "Oh, it's just a flu. It's just a flu." And I have many opinions about this because I work with some people that still don't believe that you can get it at a school, where I know I got it at the school.
Mm-hmm.
During chorus line, we had numerous kids that were ill. Some were out for 2 weeks. Some were at rehearsals coughing. Some had fevers, and they were ill.
Right.
No one at the time got tested, of course.
Right.
But at that time, my work was at the high school. I often go to Boston for auditions for my acting career. But during that time frame, I wasn't going to Boston during that month,
Right.
because it was slow for me.
Right.
So my place of physical being was at the high school. And so I'm pretty sure that's where I contracted it.
Okay. Yeah, because there wasn't a lot of information then at that point to be able to decipher. I mean, we were taking actions, but there wasn't a lot of clear information as far as, protocols and quarantine and everything else prior to that shutdown. That's really when that all started kicking in at that point.
Yes.
So you were, like I said, you were right up front, and,
Yeah.
as far as one of those individuals. I remember, the case, because we had, when the COVID team had gotten together, and we have the superintendent there, and as far as we were aware of the case, and people were concerned also, because I think you were one of the first ones to be hospitalized also right up front. There was
Yeah.
two individuals, yourself was one of them.
Yeah, I jokingly say I'm a high achiever for stupid things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let me ask you too, Kevin, do you have any underlying health conditions, anything that would exacerbate this? Can you share that? Or?
Of course, I don't mind at all.
Yeah.
This is all about sharing the information. You know what? 2 years ago, I had a stroke. I had a left thalamic hemorrhage. And luckily, I came out of that more or less unscathed. I had a slight little control issue with a little bit of my lip, but I was able to overcome that for the most part. And at the time, I was frightened because I thought, oh my God, is this going to make it worse, And then as time goes on, and by the time I was released, I read an article, and turns out that they were discovering it was a blood disease. And the blood thinners that I was on was actually kind of gave me an advantage, because they were giving me blood thinners as soon as I arrived, but I was already on the blood thinners for other ailments. And so that really, I think, helped save my life.
Yes, yeah.
Because my blood wasn't coagulating.
Yep. Yep.
So I was.
And that's one of the biggest issues with it, relative to how it reacts and coagulates the blood, creating the problems with stroke and cardiac issues. So that was probably great that you were on that, as you said, and that they continued that at that time.
Yeah. So what a blessing. I came out of my stroke unscathed, and it was pretty scary in itself, but I never thought it would have helped save me.
Right.
Until you look backwards and see how it all unfolds.
Yep. So how many days were you in the hospital?
I was in there for 7 days.
7 days. So on oxygen the entire time?
Exactly.
And,
Yes.
And as far as you were in a COVID ward, what did you observe while you were there? I mean, there were a number of cases going in there.
Yeah, the nurses were incredible, and so were the doctors. They took such excellent care of me, and they were taking care of themselves too. And they would always inform me, look, we're not trying to ignore you, but we have to limit our time in here. But if you need something, press this button and we'll come right in, and we're monitoring you as well. So I knew I was in good hands, but it was isolating and terrifying. When I was brought into my room, the nurse said, don't watch the news. And I said, exactly, we're living it.
Right.
And so she knew the severity of everything. And so it was just a matter of trying to beat the fever. And it's hard to explain, but I didn't know if I was awake or dreaming, and what was real or not. And because I had that fever for about 15 days,
Right.
even at the hospital. And thank God that Kim Peterson, strongly advised that we go in, because if I was at home during that weekend, I don't know what would have happened, because that Saturday night, the 28th, that was the worst of it. My fever had spiked again. Then the evening nurse came in and said, look, we got to go the old-fashioned way, because we can't use Tylenol anymore, or the liquid Tylenol, because your liver numbers are way too high. So we're going to go the old-fashioned way. We're going to put you on ice. And so she brought in like 15 packs of ice.
Wow.
Behind my neck, on my forehead, left and right ear, under each arm, on my stomach, and my groin, on my thighs, and my back. I mean, I was covered in ice packs the entire night. And all you could do was just lie there and just pray that I got to make a turning point here for the better.
Right.
And it puts things in perspective really quick. And, which brings up a lot of other issues, but I won't go there yet. Maybe we will get there with some other questions.
No, understood. So as far as then, you make your way out of the hospital, as far as, what resulted in the release? I mean, you saw a
Yeah.
decline in the temperature, a loss of the temperature? Or?
Yes, my fever it lowered. It never really went away, but it lowered to 99 to 100.1, 100.2. But it wasn't 103 point anything. It was just really, it was lower. And then my oxygen levels. It was important for the doctors to get a grip on my breathing. And so I think the sixth day they were teetering of releasing me, but my oxygen levels would be okay when I was sitting. But the moment I stood, it was that fighting effect of just, fighting for breath.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's crazy because I want to get home.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, I gotta control my breathing here. I gotta get home to the wife and the kids and just be at home again. And then, of course, my body's showing otherwise. And so they said it can't hurt to stay another night, and I had no problem with that. And so I stayed another day, and late in the afternoon, they came in, checked my vitals again, and they said it was good enough for me to be released, but I am still in recovery, and don't you dare do anything silly.
True, yeah. So take us then from that release and the recovery through, so we're talking April then?
I was released April 2nd.
April 2nd. So so how take us through just, progressing through April to this time frame,
Okay.
as far as what you experienced, how you were able to get back on your feet again at some point, and, but what are you experiencing?
Okay, when I got home, again, the realities of what I was dealing with hit again, because the fever came back. And, but we were instructed what to do, and so we followed the directions, and I had medications with me, and we stuck to it. And it took me about 3 days to get upstairs because I wanted to do some work. And so, but it took me 3 days to feel strong enough to navigate to walk up the stairs to my office. And so I was still dealing with the fight for my breath, my oxygen, and palpitations. My blood pressure would just rise. My beats per minute were very high and erratic. And the fatigue was relentless. And I basically just was a loaf and just was on the sofa because I couldn't do anything else.
Right. Well, the level of stress your body went through in
Yes.
attempting to fight this,
Yeah.
it had its outfall, and as it continues. But so, at what point, where were you at how far out were you when you were able to feel like you had some level of strength that you could have some form of a functional day?
I wrote down here April 26th is when I really started to feel much better. And I remember going for a walk with the family and the dog to the beach, and no one was out. It was just us. And so we were able to take our time and not worry about being around other people. And but my kids were pretty stunned because they're young, and so they're just walking normal. But then I remember, I'll never forget them looking back like, "Where's Dad?"
Yeah. What they're
then-
used to.
Yeah, and then my wife is by me, and I'm winded, and we haven't even got to the beach yet because there was a sand dune I had to climb.
Yeah.
And I had to catch my breath before I can continue for at least 5 minutes, just to kind of walk down and continue the walk. But it was great to be in the fresh air.
That was about 6 weeks out, 5 weeks out then?
Yeah.
At that point you were still, yeah.
Yeah, because I was released on the 2nd, and that was the 26th. Yeah, and then it was and then the fever would come and go throughout, not consistently, but it all of a sudden would come back, like remind me, "Hey, buddy, I'm still here," And I wrote 41 days after release that still kind of happened for me.
Wow.
And do you want to talk about side effects?
Well, as far as, yeah, let's talk about that. Are you familiar with the term long haulers?
I am.
Okay, and that's the purpose of this also, as far as having this conversation, so that people understand that there's not, there may be the immediate impact, or some people may not experience it, and as far as right up front when they contract the virus. But as far as what is going on with this virus down the road, I mean, we're a number of months out with you.
Yeah.
So where are you at now, Kevin?
I'm dealing with 3 issues. Fogginess, memory loss, and what does that look like? So I'll give you a few examples. And it feels good to talk about this because I haven't really shared this with anyone. And I'm in the process of finding a new doctor as well, because no one has answers. I mean, vaccines have been just released just a few days ago, right? So no one's really has dove into the repercussions of this and the long-term effects, and how to treat them. But what does memory loss, fogginess look for me? Emails, for example, I'm reading an email, and I'm an actor, and I go out on auditions. So the casting director sends very specific information about what to do for these filmed auditions. And I know I'm not really sharp as I used to be with my mind. So I read the email 10, 20 times because it's my livelihood. Well, there's one audition for a Braun commercial for a thermometer device for Braun. And I had missed that I would be portraying a doctor. And so I did the audition like a father taking the temperature of a child. So the atmosphere of a doctor versus a child are completely different.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
So
you're
I
missing
was
the
all,
point.
oh, poor baby, my kid, I'm just all sappy, right?
Yeah.
Luckily I got the gig, but it's things like that where it surprises me that how can I miss that?
Right.
And I submitted it, and I go, I better double check that. And then I see doctor, you're playing a doctor, and it's right there in bold.
Right.
And that was not me prior to COVID-19. This is what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important that I get all the things right for these auditions. The scariest thing is there have been 2 cases where I'm driving and I forget where I'm going. So I've had to pull over to the side of the road or a gas station to wait a few minutes and just relax and breathe until I remember, okay, there it is. I got to do this. Now, was I doing that prior to COVID? No. It scares the
So
heck
you see the
heck out of
difference.
me.
I mean, because some people
Yeah.
could say watching this, oh, well, you're of an age and you're going to stop again. I mean, you're 53. It's,
Yeah.
But you're not at a point where you're going to be driving along and just forget where you're going
Yeah.
and have that occur on a number of occasions.
Yeah.
Because, so you're familiar with who you were. So it's just.
I never did that before.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but it's not Kevin before March 13th. I never had an issue where I had to pull over kind of in a panic attack and ask myself, where the hell am I going?
Right.
That's not how I operate. But it is now. And so I'm taking measures to have my wife read emails with me that are important so I'm not missing information. My to-do list have grown because sometimes I forget I've even written a to-do list. But that's what fogginess looks like. So when you hear the term for long haulers, fogginess, memory loss, that's what it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I'm dealing with is the fatigue. It's just relentless, inconsistent. There are some days where I'm fine, and I can get up at my regular time and go about my daily business and get things done and feel productive and accomplished. And then there are days where I hit a wall.
The young lady we had also, she was 25, was experiencing that also, as far as just an inconsistency. Can't really plan for a day because she's not sure
You
what
just
to.
don't know.
You just
Yeah.
don't know.
I always pray that if I have a meeting or a phone call or whatever, that I'm sharp and I'm okay to do it. Luckily, so far things have worked out with the physical stuff. But yeah, it's more than just I need a Starbucks at 3 to pick me up. This is something that you have no choice but to lie down and take a nap and just rest. And then sometimes you wake up and you feel a little better, and sometimes you wake up and you're still kind of just drained
Yeah.
and exhausted. And then when it comes time to go to bed, you have no problem just hitting the sack and going to sleep again.
Right.
And then the last thing that I'm dealing with is, I call them phantom fevers, where I have body aches, like I'm coming down with a fever, but there's no fever. But you're tender, your muscles are sore or achy from head to toe. And it's hard to get comfortable. And I'm dealing with this at least 3 to 4 times a week. It's inconsistent of when it's going to happen. Today I'm okay. Yesterday it was kind of challenging almost the entire day for me with these phantom fevers. So those are the 3 things that I'm dealing with.
Because I know when we were arranging to do this too, because I had mentioned through the contact that, whatever works for him, because I know even the young lady we had, was looking for some time and couldn't do it on a day, and just didn't have the physical ability to do it. So I'm glad it worked out to get you here today. I think a lot of the symptoms you're speaking to are found in all long haulers, or a lot of them are. So it's the common theme of what's occurring with this virus afterwards. And as far as going forward in terms of what would you share with people as far as you've shared what's occurring with you? What would you like to say to them as far as what you've experienced for them to protect themselves?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, and I'll look at the camera and talk to the people, it's real. And I am so sorry that it has become so political, because we're in this together. We're a human species that has to take this seriously, and it's impacting us all, if you haven't noticed. Wearing a mask hurts no one, but it can certainly help. It doesn't hurt to help others or help yourself, because you don't even know if you have it. It attacks people in different ways. So if you were to get it, I pray and hope you get mild symptoms to asymptomatic, and I pray you don't get hospitalized. I pray if you do get hospitalized, you come out okay and you don't get bad side effects. It's real. It's out there. And it's not just to scare people. It's just what's happening right now. And I think everyone has to do their due diligence to protect themselves and the people they care about and the communities they live in. And that's the only way I think we can eradicate this virus and get it to a place where we can get back to a new normal. And my stance on it isn't to impose anyone's personal beliefs or rights. It's just about what's the best thing to do for humanity.
All right. Well, I thank you, Kevin, because I appreciate you coming here and sharing your experience and
Of course.
and making people aware. It means more. And I've said this before. There's a lot of people who, still say, I don't know anyone that has it, or it's not real. And, that's why I wanted to bring people forward in the community to share what their experience was.
Thank you.
And has been to date. The effects of this affect 30% of the people. In terms of those, based in terms of the long hauler, that 30% of those who contracted have that experience, or that experience is continuing. And that's, it may seem like a low number, but it becomes, you don't know what to expect. And I've used the analogy that if you were to take a bag of M&Ms, write poison on 4 of them, put them in a bowl and ask someone to take, will you take a handful and eat them? Because you don't know whether you're going to get that poison one or not, because you don't know what the reaction's going to be or how your body's going to handle it. And the only way to ensure that is just by your message as far as asking people to mask up.
Yeah.
Because it does not hurt.
It doesn't hurt. It can only help.
Do you have any closing words, any other closing words or
Dave,
thoughts?
I just want to thank you. I want to thank Paula Johnson and the whole team here at Sandwich TV for bringing light to this. It's been very isolating, this thing. I've never experienced anything like this in my life. And my life's different. It's been a little slower, you know, not just because everything's shut down, but just because it's hard from day to day to get out. So I don't know if this is going to last for the rest of my life or if it's temporary, but my life has been impacted. And so I just want to thank you all for wanting to talk about this, to share it, because it helps.
Well, thank you. And that's why we want to do it, because I know there's people that want a voice in it that have had that experience. So thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So, you know, I want to thank everyone. Again, I've heard some people say that, you know, as far as bringing forward Kevin and the young lady that came forward, that am I trying to scare people? I'm not trying to scare people. I'm trying to bring information to people that this is real and that it's real people in our community so that you have the information when you're making the decision. And I'm asking you to mask up because we want to keep people healthy in this community. And thank you very much, Kevin, for helping out.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you.